Hello and welcome to the first PlayCanvas tutorial. PlayCanvas is a 3D game development engine that runs in the cloud. So it allows you to make your own 3D games using a web browser like Chrome or Firefox. So you can create your own 3D games and you can create the objects, like different 3D shapes, characters, models, and a 3D world for your game, and then you can code it using the JavaScript programming language. To get started, it's free, so you can create two public projects and use up to 200 megabytes of storage for free. And then if you want to use more than that, then there's different paid plans as well. When you sign up for an account at playcanvas.com, so that's where you sign up, and then when you log in for the first time, you'll have a project here called My First Project. And if you go into that, it's a bit like a tutorial project. So it runs you through step by step how to use the different tools and features of PlayCanvas. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an empty tutorial project today to run you through it. So to see your projects, you need to click on the Projects tab from the home page. And to create a new project, you just click on New and give your project a name and open it up. I'm going to open up this project here, this empty one. So I'll just click on that. And then it gives you some details and some settings for the project. You just need to click on Editor, which will open it up in a new tab. And this is the PlayCanvas editor where you can actually make your game and code it. Okay, so right here in the middle, we have the scene view. So this is basically the game world. So it's empty at the moment. But this is where all of your objects, your characters, different things will be here right in your game world. So you can have more than one scene, but this is an untitled empty scene at the moment. So it's like the first level of the game. And you can add more levels or scenes to your game later on. Okay, because it's 3D, there's the X, Y, and Z axis that we work on. So every object that you create in a game will have an X, Y, and Z value. Its position, its rotation, its scale will have three different values. Okay. Over here on the left hand side we have the menu, and then there's the entity menu where you can create new entities. And basically in PlayCanvas everything is made from entities. So shapes that make up your characters or objects in the game, things like boxes, cones, cylinders, spheres, those are all entities. Okay, and entities can have different properties as well. Things like lights to give your game lighting, and sound that plays in your game, cameras, so maybe a camera that follows your player around, all of those things are also entities, and you can create new entities from that menu. You can edit, so you can undo, redo, copy, paste, edit, duplicate entities, and delete things as well. You can launch your game to test it out, get help, see all the different scenes or levels in your game, and add more scenes, and change settings as well from there. The toolbar is on the left, which gives you access to different tools like rotate to rotate an object, translate to move an object, and scale as well to change an object size. Some other different tools here as well, and you can also click on controls to see the different keyboard and mouse shortcuts to work around PlayCanvas. Okay. Next to the menu is the hierarchy panel, and the hierarchy panel shows a list of all of the entities that you have in your in the current scene. So to start with, you'll have a camera and a directional light entity. Okay, and you can click on those to see where they are. And if you click on something and you can't see where it is, and if it's hidden behind something else or if it's out of view, you can press F to focus on it and it will show where it is. Okay, so the hierarchy shows all of the different entities in the current scene and how they fit in as well. We'll look at that in more detail a little bit later on. Okay, we also have the asset panel down the bottom here, and so if you click on this little plus icon here, you can add or upload assets, so you can create folders to store your assets. You can add materials or shaders and scripts. So basically the difference between entities and assets. An entity is an object that you can create in PlayCanvas, like a sphere, for example. And say that if you want to give a sphere some color or some texture, then you can add a material to it. And a material is an asset. So an asset can be applied to an entity. So you might create a red material that has a bit of texture on it, or maybe a pattern, and so that would become an asset which can be used on that sphere entity, and it can also be used on other entities as well. So an asset can be applied to multiple entities. A script as well, so when you want to code your game to allow the player to control the game and add some interactivity, then a script is an asset, and a script which contains JavaScript code can be applied to the game or to entities in the game. Alright, so all of the assets will show up here, and the folders as well. You can add assets or delete them. And then there's also the inspector panel on the right. And the inspector panel basically shows all of the properties of different entities or assets you've created. So if I click on this camera here, you can see the camera here in the scene. And over here on the inspector panel, you can see the different properties. So the camera can be enabled or disabled. You can give it a name, and you can also see the X, Y, and Z values for its position, rotation, and scale in the game world or in this scene. You can add other components, and there's some other properties there that you can change. So what I'm going to do is show you how to add an object or an entity to your scene and how to modify that entity. So I'm going to click on plus up here to add an entity, and I'm going to add a box. Okay, now we can see that box is in the list now under the hierarchy, and a box is here in the scene. We can scroll with the mouse scroll wheel or touchpad to zoom in. You can use the left mouse button to click and orbit. So just click and drag to orbit. We can pan by holding down shift and dragging the left mouse button. You can look around by using the right mouse button. And if you're using something like a MacBook without a mouse or without a right mouse button, you can hold down Control and drag to look around. You can also move left, right, backwards, and forwards using the W, S, A, and D keys. And you can use the Q and E keys, E to go up and Q to go down. Alright. Okay, so I've got a cube here, or a box. When I click on that box to select it, you can see that there's green, red, and blue handles there, little arrows. When you click and drag those, and you have the translate tool selected, translate basically means move, you can translate or move this object's position. So if I grab the green one, that moves it up and down on the y-axis, and you can see that the y value next to position is also changing. So when I drag it up, the y value increases, and when I drag it down, the y value decreases. Okay. Same with the red handle. So the red handle is the x-axis, that moves it left and right, and the blue handle is the z-axis, backwards and forwards. Okay. You can also manually change values in here as well by typing them in. Okay, so that's how to translate or move an object using the translate tool. You can click on rotate to rotate this object, and you can do the same thing by grabbing the different handles to rotate it on the X, Y, and Z axes. Okay, and lastly, the scale tool. So the scale tool can be used on the 3 axes to scale or change the size of the object. And if I undo that, let's go to edit and undo, whoops, okay, or Command Z as a shortcut. What we can actually do is click in the middle and uniformly increase the size or decrease the size. So if you click in the middle, it will change the scale on all 3 axes, or if you just click and drag one of these handles, it will just do it on that axis. Whoa. Okay, So that's translate, rotate, and scale. Well, translate means move, and then you've got rotate and scale as well. There's snap to grid as well, so if you're moving an object, so I might just undo all of that just to make it a normal box again. If I get the translate tool and click on snap, every time I move it, instead of just moving freely across, it will snap it to a point on the grid. So you can see it just snaps to each point on the grid. If I turn that off and move it, it just moves freely. Alright, now with the hierarchy, there's one more thing I'll point out in this lesson, and that is that things can be higher in the hierarchy or lower in the hierarchy. So if I create another object, so if I click on plus and create a sphere, alright, so there's a sphere here now. That comes up as a separate object in the hierarchy, but if I drag it onto another object, like this box, it is now beneath the box. So it's actually part of the box. So if I just move around a little bit, alright, if I click on the sphere, I can move that on its own. Alright, and I can actually drag it into the cube or box that's actually inside it. But if I click on the box now, the box contains both the box and the sphere. So if I move that, it will move both the box and the sphere because the sphere is now part of the box. It's underneath it in the hierarchy. I can drag it off and it's no longer part of the sphere. They're both separate items now. Okay? So you can drag things on top of other objects and they can kind of become part of that object. So for example, if you create a character, it might have a head, a body, or torso. It might have a left and right arm, left and right leg, and etc. So what you could do is you could create the body, and then you could attach the head, and then the arms, and to the arms you could attach the hand, and to the hand you could attach fingers, and so you can have all these different shapes or objects, and they're in different order on the hierarchy. So for example, when you move the body, it moves every single part of the body, the whole character moves. When you move the arm, it moves the arm, the hand and the fingers. When you move the hand, it moves just the hand and the fingers. And when you move the fingers, it just moves the fingers. So you can have objects in different order on the hierarchy. Anyway, that's it for this tutorial. In the next few tutorials, we'll be looking at how to create a range of different shapes, make your own characters and worlds, and add more color to your game, and script it, or add code to control it. That's all for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.